Every living thing is made up of cells. There are two types of cells, prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Don't let those names scare you. The word karyot literally means nucleus. So prokaryotic basically means without a nucleus, while eukaryotic means with a nucleus. Bacterial cells and cells from a close relative of bacteria called archaea are prokaryotic. Basically every other living cell is eukaryotic. As you might have guessed, organisms that contain prokaryotic cells are called prokaryotes, while organisms that contain eukaryotic cells are called eukaryotes. Viruses, however, are a special case because they're neither prokaryotes nor eukaryotes, but we'll come to those later. Before we talk about the features of these prokaryotes, eukaryotes, and whatnot, let's take a look at some common cell organelles. Cell wall. The cell wall is rigid and is the outermost covering of cells that have it. It gives the cell support and helps maintain its shape, especially when it takes in water. Cell membrane. The cell membrane is the outermost organelle in some cells and directly under the cell wall in others. It is partially permeable, which means it allows some things in and keeps other things out, like a gatekeeper. It controls the exchange of material between the cell and its environment. Basically, all membranes that you see in biology have the same function. So whenever I say chloroplast membrane, nuclear membrane, or whatever, just know that they are all gatekeepers. Nucleus. I like to call the nucleus the mastermind of the cell. It generally controls all cellular processes. It is surrounded by a double membrane called the nuclear envelope. The nuclear envelope has some holes in it called nuclear pores that allow some substances to pass through it that wouldn't otherwise be able to pass through the membrane for some reason. The nucleus also contains chromatin, which stores genetic information and is the material from which chromosomes are made. When a nucleus is viewed under a microscope, you see one or more darker regions in it. These are called nucleoluses. These are where ribosomal RNA, which are assembled into ribosomes, are made before they pass through the nuclear pore and into the cytoplasm. But what are ribosomes? They are complexes of ribosomal RNA and proteins. I'm not going to explain to you what ribosomal RNA is right now because that isn't really important to the topic at hand. Their main function is to synthesize polypeptides, which eventually form proteins. There are two types of ribosomes, 70S and 80S. I won't go into details about their differences, just know that they are composed a bit differently, and 80S are bigger than 70S ribosomes. The rough endoplasmic reticulum, or rough ER for short, is a system of flattened membranes called cisternae, with ribosomes attached to them. It is always found connected to the nuclear envelope. Its function is to process proteins made by the ribosomes. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Connected to the rough ER is the smooth ER. It's called smooth because it doesn't have any ribosomes attached to it. Its function is to process and store lipids, carbohydrates, and steroids. And remember that just like the rough ER, the smooth ER is also made up of cisternae. But the cisternae of the smooth ER is tubular, while that of the rough ER is flattened. Golgi body. The Golgi body is made up of flattened cisternae. Its function is to process proteins and lipids and package them into vesicles, which are transported around the cell. Vesicles. They are small membrane-bound sacs that store, transport, and break down substances in the cell. Lysosomes. An important specialized vesicle you need to take note of is the lysosome. It contains hydrolytic enzymes, which breaks down biological molecules, be it for digestion or destroying worn-out organelles. Mitochondria. The mitochondria, as you already know, is the powerhouse of the cell. The reason why it's called that is because it's the major site of aerobic respiration, and aerobic respiration produces about 95% of energy in humans. It is surrounded by a double membrane. Its inner membrane forms folds which are called cristae. The space between the membrane is called the mitochondrial matrix. It contains all the enzymes and stuff used for aerobic respiration. But interestingly, it also contains 70S ribosomes and small pieces of DNA. Chloroplasts. Chloroplasts also have double membranes. Within it is a network of telecod membranes. These stacked membranes are called grana, singular granum, and the areas where they are connected are called lamellae. The stroma is a gel-like fluid that fills most of the chloroplasts, and it is the site of the light-independent stage of photosynthesis. The telecod network is the site of the light-dependent stage of photosynthesis. Just like mitochondria, they contain circular pieces of DNA and ribosomes. The presence of DNA and ribosomes in the mitochondria and chloroplasts has led a lot of scientists to believe that they were both once free-living unicellular organisms that were engulfed by other larger eukaryotic organisms and hence became part of their cells in what is now called the endosymbiotic theory. Vacuoles. Vacuoles are used for storage and are surrounded by a membrane called tonoplast. Centrosomes. Centrosomes are used in cell division and are made up of two centrioles. Centrioles are cylinders made up of microtubules, which are also cylinders. Now let's move on to the cell features of prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are unicellular. That means that the entire organism is made up of just one cell. They are usually about 1 to 5 micrometers in diameter. Bacteria have cell walls made up of peptidoglycan, but archaea cell walls are made up of pseudopeptidoglycan. They have 70 ribosomes. They don't have a nucleus. Instead, they have strands of DNA scattered in their cytoplasms. This means that they also contain RNA in their cytoplasms. Take note that in biology, any cell that contains DNA most likely also contains RNA. That is, except viruses, because viruses contain either DNA or RNA. Prokaryotes may or may not have cilia, which are hair-like projections on their surface that aid movement. They also may or may not have a protective layer called a capsule, which is made up of polysaccharides. Now, eukaryotes. They have a cell membrane, a nucleus, an endoplasmic reticulum, which is smooth and rough at various places. One or more Golgi bodies depending on the cell type. Multiple mitochondria. 80 ribosomes filled in their cytoplasm and on the surface of the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Take note that eukaryotes have 80 ribosomes in their cytoplasm and 70 ribosomes in their mitochondria and chloroplasts. They may or may not contain lysosomes at any point in time. Those organelles I just mentioned are found in all eukaryotic cells. Now these are the ones only found in animal cells. Cilia are found on the surface of some cells and are used for movement in some specific organelles, such as the fallopian tube. Flagella, which has a similar structure to cilia, are also used in movements in some specific cells, such as sperm cells. Microvilli, which are found on the surface of some cells, are used to enhance absorption. They are found in the small intestine, taste buds, and so on. These are organelles found in plant cells now. Chloroplasts. Cell walls, which are made of cellulose. Plasmodesmata, which are channels between plant cells that allow exchange of materials between them. Vacuoles. Animal cells may also have vacuoles though, but they are very small and are often temporary. Take note that all eukaryotic cells except fungi and some flowering plants have 2 centrosomes, but this number can vary depending on the type of cell. Viruses. Viruses are the special case I was telling you about earlier. They are neither prokaryotes nor eukaryotes. They are not even made up of cells. It's just DNA or RNA enclosed in a protein coat called a capsid. They may also have another outer layer called an envelope, which is made from the cell membrane of the cell they endocytosized into. By the way, viruses are only considered as living when they are in other cells. Subscribe.